Good morning. Ooh. Okay, there we go. Good morning. Happy Monday. I can't believe we are almost done with July. Like, we are officially like halfway through the year. It's basically Christmas. I don't know. I don't know what's happening, but praise God, we are here, and we're gonna keep it moving. Okay. I hope that you woke up on the right side of the bed this morning. I hope that you have an amazing day today. I hope that you've had a chance to read Esther chapter 7, but if not, that's okay. You can read it later. Because it doesn't matter, okay? All right. Every time. I have not yawned at all this morning, and then now, here I go. But it's okay. Let's jump in, and then let's have a great day. Let's choose to have a great day, okay? It doesn't matter what's going on. It doesn't matter what didn't get done. It doesn't matter what's on the list of things to do. We are choosing joy. We are choosing to trust in God and lean not on our own understanding. And it's gonna be great. God's gonna do wonderful things this week. He is going to surprise us with his magnificence this week, and we are going to seek him. That's how we're going to see it, because we're going to seek him. And the word of God says that when we seek him with all our heart, we will find him. So that's what we're going to do this week. We're going to be intentional in our seek. We're going to be intentional in prayer. We're going to be intentional in trusting God. And we are going to see him move. I believe that, okay? Because God is moving. He's moving. He's moving. He's making ways. He's fixing. He's helping. He's healing. He's working things out for us. But a lot of times we don't see it because... not because he's not doing it, but because we're not focused, because we have not set our eyes on him, because we're sometimes focusing on the problem. We're focusing on what's right in front of us, and we're not lifting our eyes to the hills from whence cometh our help. Our help comes from the Lord. So look to the Lord. Seek, and you will find, okay? Okay. So, thank you, Lord, for your word this morning. Esther chapter 7. So, Esther chapter 7 is very short, okay? It's only 10 verses, but it's not so short that we just kind of gloss over it, okay? So don't think that, okay? The chapter in your book, if you already have your book, is turning around for me. And I mentioned in the book a song that I love, that I've loved. It's been out since I might have been a kid. I don't know. But it's been around for a long time. But it's called It's Turning Around for Me by Vashawn Mitchell. So if you have not listened to that song, listen to it, especially if right now you're going through just a time of feeling like what you're facing is never going to end and it's been going on for far too long. Listen to that song and allow the Lord to just comfort you and remind you that it's temporary, that what you're facing is temporary, whatever it is, okay? And know that God is moving. He's using it. He's gonna use it for your good, okay? So it starts out, it says, so the king and Haman went to Queen Esther's banquet. So remember, last week we ended chapter 6 with Haman going to the banquet. He's dejected and humiliated. He's feeling terrible, but he got to put his brave face on and go to this banquet because Queen Esther invited him, and he got to do what he got to do. Okay, so they go to the banquet. On this second occasion, this second banquet that Esther has put on in just a couple of days, while they were drinking wine, the king said to Esther, because the king is like, look, I know why we're here. You need something, Esther, and let's talk about it. Tell me what you want, Queen Esther. What is your request? I will give it to you, even if it is half the kingdom. He's like, I'm not going to deny your request, so just tell me what it is, okay? She says, if I have found favor with the king, and if it pleases the king to grant my request, I ask that my life and the lives of my people would be spared. For my people and I have been sold to those who would kill, slaughter, and annihilate us. If we had merely been sold as slaves, I could remain quiet, for that would be too trivial a matter to warrant disturbing the king. Okay, so if we go back to Esther chapter 3, we will see that Haman, when he came to the king, he said, there is a certain race of people scattered throughout all the provinces. This is verse 8 of chapter 3. Of your empire, who keep themselves separate from everyone else. Their laws are different from those of any other people, and they refuse to obey the laws of the king. So it is not in the interest of the king to let them live, if it pleases the king. Same type of verbiage there, okay? If it pleases the king, if I found favor in the king's sight, okay? Issue a decree that they be destroyed. And I will give 10,000 large sacks of silver to the government administration to be deposited in the royal treasury. Okay, so then down in verse 13, it says, dispatches were sent by swift messengers into all the provinces of the empire, giving the order that all Jews, young and old, including women and children, must be killed, slaughtered, and annihilated on a single day. So Esther uses the exact same verbiage that was in the decree. I just wish I could have seen Haman's face, okay? She said, I've been sold, okay? What? You've been sold? So at first, this might not seem like it's about Haman at all to Haman, okay? He's probably thinking, oh, she's been sold. What does this mean? What could this be? But she's referring to the large amount of money that Haman says he will pay into the royal treasury to have this put into effect. Okay, and she says that they would kill, slaughter, and annihilate us. If we had just been sold as slaves, I could remain quiet, for that would be too trivial a matter to warrant disturbing the king. Who would do such a thing? King Xerxes demanded. Who would be so presumptuous as to touch you? You, my queen, you belong to me. So who in their right mind would do that? Esther replied. Now remember, they're eating, drinking, and being merry, okay? Esther replied, this wicked Haman is our adversary and our enemy. Haman grew pale with fright before the king and queen. This is some soap opera stuff right here, okay? This is like the title of in the book is, it's turning around for me, okay? This is giving As the World Turns soap opera right here, okay? He said he grew pale with fright before the king and queen. So now remember, he entered the banquet faking that he was not dejected and humiliated. Okay. Now he's dejected, humiliated, faking, and now he's pale with fright. Okay, let's keep going. He grew pale with fright before the king and queen. Then the king jumped to his feet. Now we know since chapter 1, the king don't play when it comes to the queen. Whether she doing what she's supposed to do or not, the king don't play, okay? We also see since chapter 1 that the king is very quick to get angry, okay? He doesn't do like it says in James where it says be slow to anger, okay? He jumps up to his feet in a rage and went out into the palace garden. He needed a breath of fresh air because he's like, I know this ain't got to be true. Okay. He goes out into the palace garden. Haman, however, stayed behind to plead for his life with Queen Esther. Now I'm intrigued because I'm thinking that Haman would plead for his life with the king. Because the king is the one that puts decrees into effect. The king is the one who gave him the position that he has. The king is in charge, but yet he stays back to plead for his life with Queen Esther. For he knew that the king intended to kill him. Now, Queen Esther did not ask for the king to kill Haman. She did not ask for him to be punished. She asked that her life and the lives of her people be spared. But Haman knew the king intended to kill him. So then why are you not going to the king? It's curious. It's curious, okay? So, in despair, okay, Haman is dejected, humiliated, fake until he make it, pale with fright, and now he is in despair. He is desperate. He fell on the couch where Queen Esther was reclining. She was on the lazy boy, okay, of that time, before lazy boy was a thing. She's reclining. Okay, this is also interesting to me because if I am going to the king on behalf of my life and my people's life, I feel like I'm going to be sitting with my posture very much straight and, you know, presenting my request to him professionally, okay? I'm not going to be reclining personally, but Queen Esther had a confidence in the providence of God that she was reclining. She was relaxing, okay, which was customary for them to do. After they eat and drink, they recline, okay? If you remember Jesus reclining at the table with the 12, okay? Last Supper, all right? So now, here we go. He is desperate. He, in despair, fell on the couch where Queen Esther was reclining just as the king was returning from the palace garden. Now, you can do your own research, but to sit with the queen, okay? No. To touch the queen, no. The king exclaimed, will he even assault the queen right here in the palace before my very eyes? And as soon as the king spoke, his attendants covered Haman's face, signaling his doom. Then Harbona, one of the king's eunuchs, said, Haman has set up a sharpened pole that stands 75 feet tall in his own courtyard. He intended to use it to impale Mordecai, the man who saved the king from the assassination. So I feel like Harbona being a little bit petty, but he finally getting his lick back because evidently he does not like Haman, okay? Because he egging this on, okay? He adding cheese on top of cheese, okay? He didn't just be like, Harbona didn't just be like, you know, Haman had a pole set up in his yard that's 75 feet tall. He was going to have somebody impaled on it. No, I'm going to let you know, King. He had a 75-foot pole set up in his own courtyard, and it was for Mordecai, the one who saved the king. You remember that, King? Because you just read about that the other day. And so, yeah, that's what he was going to do with that. Now, I also think it's interesting that Haman had this pole set up in his own courtyard. So he wanted to make sure that he saw Mordecai be impaled. That's bananas to me, okay? So he had set this up, King, for the man who saved you from assassination. Ain't that crazy? Then impale Haman on it, the king ordered. So they impaled Haman on the pole he had set up for Mordecai, and the king's anger subsided. Dang. Okay, so all of this happened at the banquet. We still don't have an answer. We don't have, the king evidently, he knows now, okay? That's why maybe he had to go outside and think about this, because he realized he's been trickified and manipulated, okay? And the decree that he signed that he knows cannot be revoked was for Esther. He's also just learned that evidently Esther is Jewish, okay? And that's crazy, because how did I not even know? And then, now he's like, okay, who can I trust? Okay. Don't know my wife. Don't know my right-hand man that I done promoted as the most powerful in all of the empire. This random Jewish guy, Mordecai, saved my life, and he was fighting with my right-hand man, and he was going to be killed, and now I got to kill my right-hand man, and it's a lot to process for the king. And he's also angry, and he's also been drinking. He's full. He's been eating at a banquet for 2 days. It's a lot to process. But let's talk about the heart posture of Esther versus Haman. And then what I want you to do, as you take notes, as you write down these different things, I want you to think about where you land. Closer to Esther, closer to Haman. Now, of course, okay, I know we want to land closer to Esther. Yeah, for sure. That's the goal, okay? But be honest with yourself, because ain't no trickifying God, okay? He knows your heart. And, so be honest with yourself of where you land, and then pray, talk to God about it, and then commit to moving forward and doing better and growing, okay? In the Word, in the Lord, staying connected to the vine, abiding, all of that, okay? So there are two different kinds of people here, two totally different kinds of people here, two different agendas, but one God in control of it all. One victory and one downhill roller coaster to death, okay? This is the soap opera of Persia, okay? So there's a plan. Each of them have a plan. Each of them have a specific process and a specific posture. And then we're going to see providence all throughout this. Providence is the care of God. It's his plan in motion, his will, his favor. So as you think about these people, as you think about Esther and Haman, be mindful of God's providence in all of it. And then, think about it as you reread your notes that you've taken from Esther chapter 1 through 6, the things you've read in your book. Think about that and think about God's providence, and then think about it for your own life. The things that you've been through, the things that you've faced, the decisions you've made. Think about how God's providence, his care for you, his kindness and compassion for you. Think about how that has covered you in your life. Okay, so Esther's plan, remember, plan, process, and posture. Esther's plan was to save the Jews, to save her people, to save herself, okay? Haman's plan was to kill, slaughter, and annihilate the Jews, those same people. Esther's process was prayer and fasting, okay? Haman's process was manipulation, status, and power. Esther's heart was full of faith. Her heart was patient, and she spoke with wisdom. She chose her words wisely, okay? Using the same words that were written in the decree. asking for favor from the king. And if it pleases the king, it shows honor and respect, okay? Haman's posture, you remember the conversations that he had with his wife and his friends, even the conversation he had with the king, okay? It's braggadocious, it's selfish, it's self-seeking. But God's providence through it all, we see his favor over Esther's life. We see that he placed her there with the past that she had, with the pain that she endured, and with purpose in order to carry out his plan of salvation for his people. That was God's plan all along. We see that even the eunuchs were aware of Haman's plan and stood on the right side of the battle that day. God's providence, not coincidence, that Mordecai's actions were revealed when they were revealed. Because initially they were just recorded in the book. The king didn't know about it until one night he just couldn't sleep and he decided to have that book read to him. That's God's providence. That's not coincidence. It's God's providence, not coincidence, that Haman's 75-foot pole was intended for Mordecai, but used for him. It's God's providence that it was set up in his own courtyard, and that's where he died. In the courtyard where as he was being impaled, he would see all of the things and the materials that he had acquired, his pomp, his status, his wealth. He would be looking over all of that. And he could see all of Persia, the empire, and the 127 provinces. He could probably see a lot of that from 75 feet up in the air, that he was the most powerful person under the king. Over that empire. He could see that as he was being impaled on that pole. So at the end, the very things that he worked so hard for didn't mean a thing. People walk through life choosing their own path. Haman chose his own path. He chose his own way, not realizing that Proverbs 14:12 says, there's a path before each person that seems right, but ends in death. This is Haman's life right here. It's God's providence, not coincidence, that I am who I am. That you are who you are. It was his plan all along to save his people. It's his plan all along to do what he promised. We have a choice to seek our own way, our own wealth, our own demise, like Haman. He was rich, powerful, and partying, but what legacy did he leave? What generational curses did he break? We can choose faith, fasting, and following God, or we can choose what pleases the flesh and what satisfies in the moment and what gives us status, wealth, or gets us a notch further on the ladder to success. Or we can choose to humble ourselves before God, to live life the warrior way, completely surrendered to the will of the Father. We can choose to trust him even when it's risky. We can choose to follow him even when we don't know where we're going. We can trust that he is the light unto our feet and the lamp unto our path. We can choose to trust that he's the shepherd. He knows where we're going. He knows where the provision is. He knows where safety is. So he's going to lead us there. Psalm 23 says he leads us beside still waters. Favor follows me because I follow God. I need you to write that down. I need you to say it out loud. Favor follows me because I follow God. And if you haven't been following God, if you have not been surrendered to what God has for you, then it's time for you to say, favor follows me when I follow God. And then you look back over your life and you realize that when I was leaning on the Lord and not on my own understanding, God was with me and he protected me. But even though I haven't been doing everything like I should, he has still cared for me. He has still protected me. He has still looked out for me. So now it's time for me to turn from my sin. The word says that if my people would humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways, then he will hear from heaven. So if you feel like God hasn't been hearing you, maybe it's time to recognize some things you need to turn from so that you can fix your eyes on the promise performer, so that you can fix your eyes on the problem solver. Because maybe you can't see, maybe you feel like he can't hear you because all you can see is the problem. And you're not taking it to the one who can fix the problem. Favor follows me because I follow God, his way, his will, not mine. Haman was willing to pay a great and hefty price to have his plan executed. But he didn't know that he would pay an even higher price. He paid with his life. Count the cost. We've talked about this in our journey. Count the cost. Yes, it costs to wake up earlier than you have to wake up for work or for school or whatever the case may be. But count the cost of doing that and spending that time with God versus not doing that and just letting the day go how the day goes. Count the cost of obedience versus choosing your own way. Pay attention to how it turned out for Haman versus how it's turning out for Esther. No, we don't yet have an answer here in chapter 7. We don't have a victory yet, but we know, because we know who God is, that victory belongs to us. Esther was not rushed. She fasted and prayed. She was led by God. She was full of faith. What she was planning was risky, but she was not led by fear. Haman's pride and arrogance led him to rage, manipulation, and cruelty, and resulted in him being dejected, humiliated, pale with fright, in despair, and ultimately impaled. There is a way that seems right. There is a way that seems right. Let me find it for sure, and I'll leave you with that. Proverbs 14. Well, I don't remember what verse it was. Hold on. Verse 12. Proverbs 14, verse 12. There is a path before each person that seems right, but it ends in death. Is my path leading to death? Is my path leading to destruction? Is my path leading to despair, dejection, humiliation, manipulation? Am I being manipulative? Or does my path lead to favor? Does my path lead to what God has for me? Does my path lead to heaven? Ultimately, that's the end goal. We either end in death or we end in heaven. Proverbs 14:22 says, if you plan to do evil, you will be lost. If you plan to do good, you will receive unfailing love and faithfulness. So, where do you land? From Esther to Haman, where have you been mentally, physically, the decisions you've been making? Think about it. Talk to God about it. I'm not here to condemn you or judge you. I'm here to enlighten you and myself. That's the whole point of this, okay? Enlighten us to what God is saying and open the door for more conversations with God, more time with God, and more growth in God. That's all I'm here to do, and I'm thankful for the opportunity. I appreciate you for joining me. We're going to do chapter 8 next week. Get your book. if you don't have it, and read chapter 8 this week, study it out and share it. Like, talk to somebody about it. Talk to someone about what God is doing and how he's moving and speaking to you in this journey. And meet me back here next week at 6 o'clock.